What's up, everybody? Welcome back inside the Horseshoe on the Monday after Ohio State 44, Penn State 31. That is the 40-year veteran Tim May. I am Spencer Holbrook. Tim, we were pretty, I was at least, pretty amped up after the game on Saturday. There was a lot to talk about, a lot to break down. It was an exciting time.
Too much.
There was too much. And so it's games like that where I'm grateful that we do a Monday show. Just to get everything out, rehash everything, but not really rehash. We're not just going to go line by line exactly what we did, but
yeah,
a lot to get to on this Monday after Ohio State 44, Penn State 31. Tim, let's go ahead and break it down. You got to watch the film again after getting back from Happy Valley. I was able to watch the film again. What stands out to you in the aftermath of a double-digit win against the number 13, now 16 team in the country?
Well, the first thing that stands out is I'm very modern. I watch video replays, not film. So that's the first thing that stands out.
Thank you, Tim.
Number two, there are games that come along. There are games that come along that are little novellas. They kind of like happen exactly the way you think they're going to happen, and you move on. This was like a novel. The way this thing just kept, like War and Peace almost. This thing had so many chapters in it, it was crazy. The way Ohio State came out, you think gangbusters. JT Tuimoloau is giving them the opportunities to make this a 21-0 game before the students in the white section, the white section of the stripe part of that stadium. That's not going to make sense to you until you listen to it 3 times before they even sat down. Most of them would have been gone by the middle of the first quarter because it would have been 21-0. Ohio State did not take advantage of those opportunities on the road, which turned it in to this ridiculous game that we watched. As crazy a game in many respects as you're ever going to see. Ohio State trailing at halftime, and then just like they've done a couple times already this year, second half, in some respects, it's almost good to see Ohio State struggle a little bit with the running game, because then they turn to the main event, which is C.J. Stroud throwing the ball to this ridiculous fleet of receivers, headlined this time by Marvin Harrison Jr. And that was in essence the difference in the game, along with the JT Tuimoloau and the defense making plays at vital times.
Yeah, Tim, that's what the 108,000 over there in State College paid to see, was the Penn State defense against the Ohio State passing attack. And they got to see it in the fourth quarter. We all saw it. It was a master class on how to turn the switch. I don't think Ohio State can quite get away with that. I was talking to somebody before the show.
Wait a minute, against Northwestern? You don't think they can get away with that?
Before the show, I was talking to somebody. I'm not sure if Ohio State can get away with that against the Tennessees, the Georgias, the Michigans of the college football world. But Saturday was good enough, and to be able to turn it on, and wow, we've got some pigeons behind us going nuts. To be able to turn it on, the running game's not working. Well, then you throw 2 passes down the field, all of a sudden you get Penn State spread out, and then Traven Henderson's gone for 41 yards. That's the passing game setting up the running game that we haven't seen the last 2 weeks. Then you've got the next drive for Ohio State. You get a really long pass to Emeka Egbuka, and then all of a sudden Traven Henderson's in the end zone for a second time. And so it's just, there are just moments where you see this team flip a switch. And I don't know if I've ever seen a team be able to do it the way this one does.
This team has a superior passing game, an elite passing game, as good as anybody's in the country. Maybe Tennessee is right there in that argument. You got to do what you do best, and that's what Ohio State does. I mean, if you went in there with an average passing game on Saturday and that running game, Ohio State would have gotten beat by 2 touchdowns.
Yes.
But what separates Ohio State from everybody else in the country, in my mind, at this moment, is the ability to throw the ball. That's why, everybody got upset when Gene Smith said if they ever got to host a round of 12 playoff game, he'd want to see it done probably at Lucas Oil Stadium.
The Hoosier Dome. As he said.
Well, he said Hoosier Dome. I corrected him. But we all saw the video of the Hoosier Dome getting imploded. But we both digressed. Bottom line is, you want to see them play on a fast track. I mean, this is a ridiculous circus of a passing game with the most accurate quarterback in the country throwing the ball, C.J. Stroud. There is no doubt about that if you just watch video like I do. You crank up your film machine and you can watch the same thing. And I know you agree with me on that. There's nothing wrong with being able to throw the ball better than anybody else. I mean, the biggest difference on Saturday at Penn State was supposed to be their super talented, uber talented, as some people over there called it, secondary. going against that Ohio State passing game.
It went against it.
Marvin Harrison Jr. showed you that why he's called Marvin Harrison Jr. because he's Marvin Harrison's son. But he also picked up all the other traits of Marvin Harrison Sr. and showed you, put it on display. And then when you flip, I mean, right at the end there, I wrote about it the next day or later that day. That 3rd and 10 pass from C.J. Stroud to Marvin Harrison to keep that Marvin Harrison Jr. to keep that drive alive. That was just classic football. That was classic. My guy's better than you. My guy's throwing the ball is better than your guy, and my guy catching the ball is better than your guy because he could put trips to the left side. I think in a bunch formation. Had Marvin Harrison Jr. 1-on-1 with a cornerback. That's no contest. I'm not sure there's a corner in the country that could cover Marvin Harrison Jr. 1-on-1 because not only is Marvin Harrison Jr. good at catching the ball, he's good at running the route to get him open to catch the ball. And then C.J. Stroud throws a strike. Those are the kind of things that come to bear in a big-time game. A lot of teams maybe won't even try that kind of move, won't even go whole hog to their passing game. But Ohio State has a passing game that can line up and play with anybody. And I've said this a million times. I'll say it 1,000,001. We've got a spectator here watching us because he might not have heard it. To beat Alabama, to beat Tennessee, to beat Georgia, you've got to not only be willing to throw the ball, you've got to throw the ball.
Yep.
And that's what Ohio State is willing and able to do as well as anybody in the country, if not better.
Yeah, Tim, we've seen...
this worry thing about Michigan in 4 weeks and things like that, I mean, just go watch Michigan's video. This is going to be a hell of a game.
Yeah, we've got a few more weeks until that showdown, Tim. But the thing about Marvin Harrison Jr. that stands out to me is his first ever start, I believe, was in the Rose Bowl against Utah. And he was lined up on Clark Phillips, who is known as one of the best corners in the country. Well, you saw how that turned out. He was lined up Saturday against Joey Porter Jr., one of the best corners.
Not all day, but sometimes.
Sometimes. Yeah. You saw how that turned out. Yeah. He's one of the best corners in the country. You can't.
And the Kalen King kid, who is going against a lot, also
will end up
being one of the elite corners in the country.
Good luck guarding him is what I'm saying. Like Marvin Harrison Jr. just gets open, and they call him Route Man Marv for a reason. That name, it's well worth.
It resonates.
Yeah, it resonates. There you go. Thank you for helping me with that word, Tim. The thing that really stands out to me about this passing attack and about what Ohio State does is, they ran the bubble screens ad nauseum. I think if there were 102,000 people in here watching that, they would have been booing by the third one. And maybe justifiably so.
Yeah.
But
I was almost booing, and I'm covering the game objectively, but I kept saying, why are you continually doing this? And then Ryan Day gave us, I'm not sure it wasn't tongue in cheek. He said he didn't use this term, but it was like rocking the boat. He was trying to get the Penn State defense to run all the way over on that side to chase it, and then all the way over on that side. But really what was happening was the two wide receivers in front of Emeka Egbuka almost every time were missing their blocks, and he's getting canned there for no gain or 1 yard. I mean, it wasn't working. They tried to run wide a lot. It wasn't working. That was playing right into the hands of Penn State's fast, but I don't think as stout up front defense. And I didn't understand that approach. It reminded me of Ohio State against Clemson in 2016 out there in the Fiesta Bowl. When all Ohio State had was Curtis Samuel, they kept doing all this wide stuff. He was playing right into Clemson's strength of his defense, and that's what was bothering me. And they never got away from it in the first half of Saturday, in my opinion, at least far enough away from it where you couldn't smell it anymore.
So there's two trains of thought there, Tim, and I kind of wanted to get into this a little bit, but not a lot, because this isn't a scheme show. If your running game is not working, and you're only getting 1 or 2 yards in the running game, and you're getting negative 1 yard in the running game, that's not making anybody move sideline to sideline on that defense.
No, that's what I just said.
But if you want to continue to do those short yardage things, at least those bubble screens get a linebacker pursuing to that side of the field, to this side of the field, and then you saw them hit over the middle with Marvin Harrison Jr. that deep in. You saw them hit over the middle with Cade Stover, a little bit Mitch Rossi. And so I do agree with Ryan Day. It does keep a defense on its toes, because all of a sudden you're running out to get to Emeka Egbuka, even if it's a negative 1 yard or 1 yard gain.
Yeah.
And then they hit you up the middle with a run and your linebacker is tired. Or then they hit you over the middle, the intermediate stuff that C.J. Stroud is becoming just super, super proficient at. and then a linebacker is tired, and that can play to your advantage. The other side of that coin is
they both ran about the same amount of plays, like 65 or so plays. I mean, I'm not sure anybody was like worn out, on either side of the field.
The other side of that coin is it's a wasted play that didn't work, and throw it.
That's my point.
If it doesn't work the first 3 times, throw it in the garbage and run Traven Henderson up the middle for -1 if that's what you want to do. I'm not going to question Ryan Day's play calling.
But the
as
reason
far
they were
as
in the predicament they were in is they were running stuff like that in the first half, and they weren't effective at all on a consistent basis on offense. That's what bothered you. I kept expecting them, like the third time they lined up with trips or a bunch left or bunch right, fake that, throw back to the backside, which is sort of what they did on the Marvin Harrison Jr. play, which kept that drive alive, that 3rd and 10 in the second half. I mean, you've got one-on-one. You're trying to create a one-on-one matchup for these receivers. You got that, finally in the game. They did play off of that from earlier, but did they really? I mean, it was just, you got to send defenders over there to cover a bunch formation with 3 guys in it. My point was I thought they were going to get to that a lot earlier in the game plan than they did, and that's what bothered me. I don't want to get mired down in this, but that's why it was the game it was at halftime. That's why Ohio State was trailing at halftime. It had found nothing it could hang its hat on offensively in the first half.
Yeah, and our job actually is to question Ryan Day's play calling if we think that something's odd. So I say that I'm not going to question Ryan Day's play calling in a sense of I'm not going to be the one to say, hey, you shouldn't be doing that, because they obviously had an offensive game plan that involved that. And then you did end up seeing when Ohio State decided it was time to send Emeka Egbuka down the field, Tim, it paid off. I think he had 4 catches for -2 yards, and then he ended up with 6 catches for 53 yards. That tells you that you could have probably went to that well much sooner. Maybe it had a little more water in it than you thought. Because they found him over the top on a play that they probably could have ran in the second quarter. Instead, they ran it in the fourth quarter to seal the game.
Right.
And then you see, well, you probably could have done it with Emeka before. Well, you probably also could have done a lot of things with Marvin Harrison Jr. before. If they wanted to, Marvin Harrison could have had 20 catches for 360 yards instead of 10 catches for 180 yards. These receivers were that good when they were put in a position to succeed.
Yeah. Marvin Harrison Jr. also showed his toughness, getting hit on that one play, leaving the game and coming back,
dangling that arm.
His right arm, and of course he didn't extend for that pass down the sideline, and I'm going, oh no, he's really hurt. Well, he comes back in the next series and he does what he does. It turns in these great games, these great matchups, these like matchups when you're playing like personnel.
Yeah,
I'm not saying Penn State is as totally talented as Ohio State, and I don't think they are, but when you're playing like personnel, these games dissolve into somebody making some big plays. And you saw Penn State runs a little hitch to a guy, a little curl route, and Tanner McAllister and I think it was J.K. Johnson were both there. The guy slips out of both their arms. Ohio State had sold out with a blitz, Lathan Ransom up the middle, and boom, that guy goes for a touchdown. Those are the kind of plays that keep a team in a game, just like the throw to Cade Stover that was supposed to get about maybe 10 or 15 yards, and he runs through 3 tackles to the end zone. Those are huge plays. That's what makes the difference in these kind of games. That's why Ohio State has a shot, projecting from this. Ohio State has as well-rounded, forget about a big-time passing game, has as well-rounded a passing game as anybody in the country with Cade Stover involved. I mean, he's been the real, from a tight end standpoint, he's been the breakout guy nationally this year, in my opinion. Whether he's getting the right run that he should be getting, that's for other people to say. I don't think he is. But the bottom line is that's what makes Ohio State potent. You think you got him, and then this passing game rolls out, whatever you want to put it on, whatever airplane you want to put in the thing. I would say an F-22 fighter. They roll out this Air Force, and you can't stop every bit of it.
No, Tim, and that's the offense. That's the story of the offense, is you can only do it for so long. And I had said before the game, Penn State's going to have to do it for 60 minutes. I said that to a couple of our Penn State guys over at On 3. They couldn't do it for 60 minutes. They could do it for about 45, maybe 48, maybe 50, but you've got to do it for 60 minutes against these Buckeyes. Tim, as we switch over...
But everybody's also upset that Ohio State didn't get a running game going like Michigan did against Penn State. Michigan and Ohio State are different.
Matchups are different, Tim. Yep.
No, yeah, just I'm just stating that for these folks who keep going, well, they have no shot on November the 26th against this formidable physical Michigan team. Ohio State's in the game last year up there at Ann Arbor and then blew it in the second half. And granted, the physical nature of that game did take over. Ohio State is better on defense this year than it was a year ago. Much better, in my opinion. And then offensively, yeah, they've gotten stoned the last 2 weeks. Well, both Iowa and Penn State sold out to really stop the run these last 2 weeks. Michigan, we'll see what its approach is, whether it can stop the run without selling out. That's going to be an interesting game to watch, but people are already projecting Ohio State having no chance because of the physical nature of Michigan, when in fact Ohio State beat Penn State about as well as Michigan did.
That is a little bit of a peek ahead at about 3 or 4 weeks from now. Ohio State still has 3 games before then. Ohio State's defense still has 3 games before then to kind of shore some things up. I thought the defense played well on Saturday, Tim, but corner is still a concern with Cameron Brown being still out. J.K. Johnson still being kind of green. I didn't think he played poorly, but I think that there's certainly room for improvement for him. We didn't see a lot of Jordan Hancock. I'm assuming that he is still working his way back.
He did play some, though. That was key.
A healthy number 7 will be very good for Ohio State because I think he's going to be one of the breakout stars of November for this defense if he is available for a majority of the snaps and Cameron Brown is not. The missed tackle, you have those.
Yeah,
but
happens.
But when you have one on a long touchdown run that, Tanner McAllister knows this better than anybody on this defense. If Jim Knowles calls an all-out blitz, got to make a tackle. So there's one. Tommy Eichenberg, that 4th down down near the end zone.
Hit him in the backfield.
Hit him in the backfield. That's a tackle you've got to make. There was another 4th down in Ohio State in Penn State territory. Penn State went for it. Tommy Eichenberg had Sean Clifford in the backfield. Didn't make the tackle. Tommy had 15 tackles. He played really well. Those 3 moments, though, are the kind of moments that a defense will look back on in a playoff semifinal or a national championship and say, man, we had them. You think about that 2019 Ohio State-Clemson game. If 3 guys who are converging on Travis Etienne on 3rd and goal corral him, I think it was Tyler Friday, Jeff Okudah, and the surest tackler under the sun, Jordan Fuller. If they tackle him and stop him on 3rd and goal, maybe they're kicking a field goal and you got a different game. Those are the.
You remember how it was raining a few minutes ago and now it's not raining?
Yeah.
The rain stopped. I mean, you can't go back and.
No,
can't go back and replay these things. Number one, number two, you do learn a lesson. I mean, Tanner McAllister and J.K. Johnson took themselves both out of that.
Yeah,
they were there. They had 2 guys to tackle this. Sometimes the other guy makes a play.
Yeah,
I mean, just like that running back slips right through Tommy Eichenberg's arms. Tommy Eichenberg's been as sure a tackler as you've seen in the country this year from that linebacker position. I don't think he had the greatest of games on Saturday, even though he had buku tackles. 15. He was in on 15 tackles. I don't think he had the greatest of games, but sometimes it happens. But the point, I guess, I would make is those guys were there to make the play, and they didn't. That's the point
happens. That's the point.
I know, but you can't go back and have them make it now. They just learned that lesson. That's where you move on from those situations. I mean, Alabama, if you watch them play, they've missed buku tackles. I guess that'll be my word for the day. Tennessee's defense, in my opinion, on Saturday was as good a defense as you're going to see in the country, as you saw in the country on this past Saturday when they just shut down Kentucky for the most part. But they didn't just shut down Alabama, which I think is good on offense, but not great on offense this year, especially with Bryce Young banged up. But those plays happen, and I think a team, you go back and you go, okay, make that tackle next time. Of course. Tommy Eichenberg's already thinking that as soon as that guy's out of his arms. You understand what I'm saying? And I just think people dwell on the stuff that happened instead of looking at the overall picture. The overall picture was Ohio State did win by double digits at Happy Valley, a win by 1 point there, because we've seen weird stuff happen over there in that stadium, especially in the whiteout situation. But I've seen weird stuff happen when it was daylight, like in 1994, Ohio State gets beat 63-14. The Black Sox scandal, as we call it, because the players wore black socks for unity, and there was no unity at all. And then they go back over there in 95, and Ricky Dudley makes the greatest catch of his college career, former basketball player, down the middle that keeps a drive going, and Ohio State ends up beating Penn State at Penn State in the daytime, and Ricky Dudley becomes a first-round draft pick basically off of that play. I mean, stuff happens, you learn from it, and you move on. I think this defense was in pretty good position most of the game on Saturday. You agree with that?
I do.
I thought they had good stuff called, but occasionally the other guys make a play.
The point, I guess, that I was trying to make, Tim,
I got to get some oxygen.
The point, I guess, that I was trying to make, Tim, is you can be in position to make those plays, and I think against a quarterback not named Sean Clifford, those are the kind of plays that can cost you a game. Is all I'm saying.
Yeah. I'm not arguing that.
So I think this defense played well, but there's going to be moments on the film, the videotape. Sorry, not the film, where they look back and they say,
"Wait, you're still using videotape?" Where they look back and say what?
There are plays on the hard drive, Tim, that they pull up with the click of the mouse on the iPad or whatever, and they figure out, those are the kind of plays that we have to, if you're in position to make that tackle on Parker Washington, that's a tackle you have to make and I know it sounds obvious. I'm just, there's reasons to talk about this defense that aren't just, they forced 4 turnovers, because
without the 4 turnovers, they've been in a world of hurt.
A better quarterback, not named Sean Clifford. The difference in the game, I guess is what I'm trying to say, is one team had C.J. Stroud and J.T. Tuimoloau. One team had Sean Clifford, and the team with Sean Clifford, surprisingly enough, did not win.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the story of Sean Clifford against Ohio State.
What if he'll have a poster up on his wall of J.T. Tuimoloau?
No.
No. He'll have a poster in his mind of J.T. Tuimoloau, because that was about as one guy ruining another guy's Saturday as you're gonna get in college football.
It was.
I mean, it was nuts. J.T. Tuimoloau, and the thing about it is, we've been waiting for this to happen for a year and a half. I mean, a season and a half. He shows up in July of 2021, last guy to sign. Had to make up his mind. He wasn't in what I'd call great football shape to play college football, because he hadn't gone through a Mickey Marotti winter, a program, etc. You can see where the Mickey Marotti approach of Ohio State's football performance coordinator has made just ridiculous strides with him from a physical standpoint. And then on top of that, his football acumen for a defensive end, in my opinion, is off the chart. The way he plays, etc. You and I've been watching him from the press box forever. He's just been that close to having a game like this, Tim, all year, and it finally blew up right in Sean Clifford's face.
Yeah, Tim, JT claims his favorite play, which is fine, it's his personal opinion, was with the one he batted to Zach Harrison.
Well, started it off.
The most athletic play was the obvious pick six, where Clifford was trying to fire a dart, and he kind of just snatched it out of the air. I'd like to think he gives a little credit to those gloves.
It was like Khalil Mack here against Braxton Miller back in whatever that was.
Watching back over the game, though, Tim, I think I was the most impressed with the strip sack in which a Division I right tackle does one kick step, and JT Tuimoloau has a right arm in his chest with one arm is pushing him back, switches arms, keeps him at distance, and swats it out of Clifford's hand.
That was so big time.
Doesn't know where the ball is and has the wherewithal to turn around and realize that the ball is behind him and jump on it. He was, whatever words they used on College Football Final or any show that you watched to describe the college football weekend, whatever adjectives they used, he was better than that. I've never seen a defensive performance like his. I'm
getting chills because I wrote a little story for us for Lettermen Row. I put a little first person in it only because that's the greatest performance by a defender that I've seen. I've seen some great plays, great 2 or 3 plays by defenders for Ohio State over the last 39 seasons I've been covering this team. But I've never seen it on a continual basis. He was a factor even on plays where he didn't make the play.
Yes.
Just like the week before, and Brian Day brought it up. He's the guy that bothered Petrus on that pass that Petrus ends up throwing the ball from a panic situation right to Tommy Eichenberg, who catches it and cuts right there at the 5-yard line, goes in for a touchdown. I mean, he's been part of two pick sixes in the last 2 weeks for this Ohio State defense. You remember you were asking, and other people were asking, can these turnovers come in bunches? And Jim Knowles kind of laughed because you never know what play is going to play. Who's going to call.
He said, "Call the turnover play."
Yeah, call the turnover play. 10 turnovers in the last 2 weeks is a big time stat.
Yes.
But generated by this Ohio State defense, a huge stat against the best. It comes in handy when you're playing against the best defense they've gone against this year so far, which was Iowa. Mm-hmm. And a defense that's right up there in my opinion. I'm talking about Penn State's defense bothered Ohio State in a lot of ways on Saturday. Especially when Ohio State was insistent on running the ball, into that piece of oak. It's hard to drive a nail in a piece of oak. They finally went outside and went with a buzzsaw, which is Marvin Harrison Jr., Emeka Egbuka, Cade Stover, Julian Fleming, etc. Mitch Rossi. Well, that was one catch, but it was huge.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But to me, it's just like this defense didn't have his finest hour, have his finest 3 hours on Saturday at Penn State.
It was a Fox game, Tim. It was 4 hours.
Yeah, 3.5. It seemed like 12. But moments-wise, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
That's right up there with any moments in Ohio State history.
And they were in position to make the other plays. Two of Parker Washington's biggest plays were the pass where he laid out. That's just a great catch. You tip your hat. The other one was a hitch route where they should have made the tackle. And so
Stuff happens,
you
man.
can't strip those away, obviously. Remember the Notre Dame game. I said other than those 2 plays, they didn't give up anything. You can't strip those out, but also you learn from those and you realize, hey, maybe we didn't play as badly as 31 points allowed might suggest against that Penn State offense that had 4 turnovers and still put up 31 points. You can see that they did not play like that. Now, moving forward, Tim.
They were 44-24.
Exactly.
And, of course, they went into this ridiculous prevent defense. I don't even know what that was. It was like, here, you can have 45 yards.
Yeah.
And Penn State said, okay, we'll take it.
Yeah, there were celebrations already.
I didn't get that part.
Like I said on the field at Beaver Stadium on Saturday, the celebration was already well underway at 44-24.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if there were.
What else stood out was when I was leaving, hour and a half, 2 hours after the game, how many people were still partying over there?
Tailgating. Oh, yeah.
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 That tailgate's the real deal over there. And win or lose, they're going to party.
Yeah. Penn State, I will compliment Tim. I don't think any Penn State fans are going to watch this video, but that crowd was awesome. It was my first time over there for a noon game. The press box was still shaking like I've always seen from so many people in the past. Yeah. That place shakes. It's really rickety, but it's a really cool place. And like you said, the party was not stopping just because Penn State got beat.
Wait till you get to Ryan Field this weekend. Go ahead now.
And that's where we transition to Ryan Field, Tim, for an 11 a.m. local kickoff.
We've got a Northwestern fan in our proximity
the Northwestern
close proximity.
Wildcats.
Yeah.
Tim.
Wow. They beat Nebraska in the season opener in Dublin, Ireland, and you're thinking, man, wow, there might be something going on here. You knew there was something going on with Scott Frost after that game, but there might be something going on here. Wow. Southern Illinois must be good.
There's definitely something going on. They're 1-7. They haven't won on American soil since 2021.
That's exactly right. That's a good way of putting it.
Tim, they were 6-2 in the COVID year, but I think that was more of a organizational. We're better organized than you are.
They got there.
Non-COVID year, 2019 to now, they're 3-19 in conference play. This is a program, from the looks of the outside, that appears to start to be in a little bit of a decline. Fitzgerald usually has 1 year off, 1 year on, 1 year off, 1 year on. You're not seeing that right now from this program. Ohio State's going to go over there as a 36-point favorite, according to Circa Sport.
Have you ever been there? You ever been to Circa Sport? Their sports book is phenomenal.
Not a sponsor.
Right.
Tim?
Okay. I'm sorry.
Not a sponsor.
Right.
Ryan Field.
It's crazy, though.
Ryan Field will be the site of that, though. The grass will probably be about this high, Tim, trying to slow down this Ohio State passing attack. I don't think it'll matter. The Northwestern offense is not very good. It's going to be interesting to break it all down this week. But the Buckeyes, the name of the game, the next 2 weeks especially, I won't include the Maryland trip because that's a road trip the week before Michigan.
Maryland is potent.
But the name of the game, easier for me to say, the next 2 weeks, go to Northwestern, take care of business, stay healthy. Come home against a terrible Indiana team. Take care of business, stay healthy, get to the final 2 weeks of the season undefeated, and then you roll the guys out there and see what happens.
Take care of business is something you can do. Staying healthy, you got to go like this.
Yep.
Because on any football play, a guy can get your starting whatever, a lineman, name him, can get rolled up on, and suddenly you're scrambling. No, you're exactly right, but you can't necessarily forecast that.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to jump in there with
you're fine.
An explanation, but yeah, you just want to keep on keeping on. You want to play some guys if you can early in those kind of games to take yourself out of jeopardy to a certain extent.
Yep.
If you can. But no, you're exactly right. It's all about maintaining, and this is what you're leading up to. Ohio State has no chance to impress anybody until at least the Maryland game. C.J. Stroud has no chance to really make a lot of hay in the Heisman Trophy race right now, except for the Maryland game and then Michigan and possibly the Big Ten championship game. A lot of things, Ohio State's going to go kind of under the radar, but from the standpoint of somebody not watching the radar screen the next 2 weeks, you know. Whereas, you know, Hendon Hooker has these marquee games coming up, man, in this Heisman Trophy race. It's crazy. I mean, they play Georgia, you know. They're going to play in the probably SEC championship game if they get past Georgia. Right on down the line, there are all these opportunities for him to make strides, for Tennessee to further its stance and where it's, you know, from the standpoint of a top 3, top five team and stuff. So you're right. Ohio State just needs to maintain, get to the Maryland game, be impressive, play Michigan, take care of business, and move on to the Big Ten championship game. There's a lot at stake, though, over the next 4 weeks, which is kind of funny the way college football works, but it is the way it works.
It's kind of funny, Tim. Hendon Hooker has 2 statement games coming up, and then I think plays South Carolina and Vanderbilt to end the season, where he'll just be stockpiling stats. CJ Stroud's got 2 stockpile stats games, and then he gets to make his statement the 2 weeks after that. So it's kind of flip-flopped as this Heisman Trophy race enters the home stretch. Tim, it's going to be interesting to try to break down this Northwestern game just because of the lopsided nature of what it is. And, you know, maybe Ohio State goes in there a little sleepy, but over 60 minutes to envision this Ohio State team struggling with a Northwestern team that has not even shown an American pulse this year. It's going to be interesting. So I'm anxious to get over there to see how this Ohio State team responds. Second straight road trip on a sleepy Saturday morning.
Let me put it this way. Iowa threw the ball on this Northwestern defense. Iowa. That Iowa offense threw the ball on Northwestern.
I think it's time for a Brian Ferentz contract extension.
No, I'm just saying, keep in mind what's rolling in there on Saturday morning at noon. It's going to 11 a.m. their time, 11 a.m. Central Time. C.J. Stroud and company. You don't go. We'll talk about this later in the week. You don't want to say name your score, but there will be targets of opportunity all day long in this passing game for Ohio State if, in fact, it decides to use its Air Force.
We've got 4 or 5 more days to break it all down, Tim. We'll have full coverage of all of that at lettermenrow.com. Tim and I will both be in Chicago. Evanston, sorry, not Chicago. Tim and I will both be in Evanston. Matt Parker will be in Evanston.
But it is Chicago's Big Ten team. That's
debatable, Tim. We'll have a full 4-person crew from Lettermen Row in Evanston for Saturday, Ohio State Northwestern at noon. But this is the Monday after Ohio State 44, Penn State 31. That's the 40-year vet Tim May. I am Spencer Holbrook. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching, listening. Make sure to hit the little bell underneath. Subscribe to the videos. You get a notification every time we produce one of these fine videos. And you can get all of our coverage at lettermenrow.com. $1 for an entire year, Tim.
What a Merry Christmas that would be.
The championship chase is on, Tim. There's no better place to follow it than lettermenrow.com. Again, Tim, Spencer, Ohio State 44, Penn State 31. We'll have full coverage this week at lettermenrow.com. We'll see you guys there.